Hey there, today we're looking at building a chatbot with Next.js and LangChain using Supabase Vector. So now we can chat with our document. So maybe let's ask, does Supabase allow remote work? Question mark. So we're firing this off now. We're finding the matches. And we can see here, so we found our matches. These are these two Supabase job postings, and then now the document is too long, so we're summarizing the information from the two job postings, and we're then putting together our prompt. So we can see here our prompt, and then we're streaming back the answer, yes, Supabase supports remote work. Now this demo is a fork of the Pinecone chatbot demo. And this is really awesome work by Roy here. You can read the blog post, I'll link it below. Kind of the concept of building a multi-user chatbot with LangChain JS in Next.js. And there's a couple components to it, but most importantly, what I kind of wanted to try here is sort of replace a lot of these different SaaS services with the capabilities that are built into Supabase. So instead of Pinecone, we're using Supabase Vector. Instead of Ably, we're using Supabase Realtime. Instead of CockroachDB, we're using the Postgres database that comes with the Supabase stack. And then instead of Fingerprint, we're using Supabase Auth. So all of these services, we're boiling it down into just Supabase and OpenAI with Next.js here. Now, in terms of the architecture for the chatbot, we have kind of two components. So we have an indexer, which sort of writes embeddings, kind of generates embeddings from our source of truth here. So we can look at the indexer. So we have our source of truth, which is some website. We have a crawler kind of getting that information from the website, and then using LangChain and OpenAI, we're generating our embeddings and then storing them in Supabase Vector. And then when we kind of want to chat with our source of truth itself, basically we take the user query. Again, we create an embedding from that query. We then search kind of through all the documents to find kind of the relevant sort of source of truth that we indexed, kind of the relevant URLs. We summarize that content from that URLs, and then we're generating kind of a response and streaming that back to the user using Supabase Realtime. Now, the great thing with LangChain is it has built-in support for Supabase Vector. So the way we can do this is we can just take this schema here and apply that to our database using the Vector extension. And so if you clone down here, clone down this LangChain chatbot demo, the URL is also below in the description. We can then open this up in VS Code, for example, and we can look at, so we have some migrations in here. So these are initial migrations that we apply when we run Supabase start. So we can run Supabase start here to start up our local stack. I already have it running, so I can run Supabase status to see kind of the local credentials. And if I open this up here, so we can see we have just copied this from the LangChain documentation. So this is what enables our Supabase Vector, creates our documents. So basically makes the LangChain framework work with Supabase Vector. And then one thing that I've added specifically here is the ability to allow the querying on the public documents for authenticated users. So this is using row-level security policies here. And so we only wanted to allow the querying for authenticated users kind of from the client side. We can allow that, for example. And so otherwise it is the same here as this, which just kind of added in the row level security here. And then also we're storing the conversations. So that is basically, the text sort of that was typed into the chat, and then what the AI replied. So we're storing the kind of user and AI chatbot conversations as well, as we want to remember the history of the chat. And we're also injecting that chat history into the prompt to also know kind of the history of previous conversations. And again, we're applying kind of a row level security policy here, specifically that only the user can see their own kind of conversations, with the chatbot. So we're locking down kind of the information here. Okay, great. So let's actually have a look. We can run this. So we can say npm run dev. So first of all, we have Supabase running locally, and then also we have our chatbot here running locally, and it is comes with Supabase Auth. So this is the Auth UI for React actually. But then first of all, we want to crawl some information. And here, for example, we're hiring. If you didn't know, you can check out Supabase careers. For example, we're hiring for a customer solutions architect. And this is the whole job description here. There's a lot of information in there, like 100% remote work, ESOP in the company, equity ownership. Tons of stuff. So, let's make our lives easier. And let's actually crawl this. So API/crawl. We can crawl our job description here. And what we can see is now we're crawling our jobs. And we're also crawling. So the crawler kind of does a bit of a recursive thing where it crawls the pages that are kind of linked in it as well. And then we can see, okay, this is done now. So what we can see actually now, if we go to the Supabase Studio here, so we have the local host. Again, if you don't remember, we can do Supabase status. So after we've run Supabase start, we can get our local details here. And so we can open up this project locally here, and we can now look at, we have our conversations. So we don't have any conversations yet, but here we have our documents. So this is what we've crawled here. We have our vector embeddings, and you can see kind of the lines of code. Not lines of code, so there's some metadata as well, and these are sort of the lines. So the documents are kind of broken down into different sections. So using the metadata as well, we can then perform some filtering. So that's really powerful in Postgres, where we have the JSON-B data type, so we can kind of drop full sort of JSON documents into our documents here as metadata. Great. So now we've crawled this. We have it in our database. So now what we can do is, let's actually have a look at how that crawler worked. So this is in our pages, API, and then crawl here. So we're using LangChain, we're using OpenAI embeddings from LangChain, and then we're using the Supabase vector store. So this is really neat, where kind of LangChain is integrated with the Supabase vector store. And then really just from the query, we're getting the URLs that we want to index. We're kind of creating sort of a document collection. So we're splitting kind of the sections to make sure we have kind of the right, size to create the embedding, so we don't run out of the token size. Splitting sort of the documents here. And then we're creating our embeddings. So OpenAI embeddings, we're creating our Supabase vector store, just putting in a Supabase admin client here. So the Supabase admin client just uses, here we can see that uses the private key, which is our service role key. And then we can perform kind of admin operations, which is inserting these documents. And so we're then, creating kind of in our document collection, adding in kind of storing all the documents. And then we have the documents here in our database, and we can then perform searches on them. So let's go over to that. So first of all, we'll need to log in. So currently, if we look in our project here, so we're running again on localhost, we're running the entire Supabase stack locally, and we don't have any users yet. So let's sign up a new user, tester at test.de. And here, so if we say sign in, we're not, invalid credentials because we haven't. So let's sign up. And then we need to check our email for the conversation link. Now we're running on localhost, so we're not sending out actual emails here. But what we can do is we have this service called Inbucket, which is a really, really cool open source service as well. And we can see here we have our confirm your email. So this one was just sent just now, and we can click and confirm our email address. And now we can see we're logged into our application here, running on localhost. So now we can chat with our document. So maybe let's ask, does Supabase allow remote work? ? So we're firing this off now. We're finding the matches. And we can see here, so we found our matches. These are these two Supabase job postings. And then now the document is too long. So we're summarizing the information from the two job postings, and we're then putting together our prompt. So we can see here our prompt. And then we're streaming back the answer. Yes, Supabase supports remote work. Fully remote communication will happen over email, video, yada, yada, yada. And that's exactly that. So this is working entirely as expected. Let's have a look at how the actual chat functionality is working. So again, the heart of it is kind of here in chat.ts. Yes, again, kind of LangChain stuff, OpenAI. We have a prompt template here. And then we're got our summarizer, and here using the auth helpers, we're creating a Pages server client, which is kind of a server-side client that we can use to perform sort of authenticated queries on the server. And so we're just getting our Supabase Auth client. So our Supabase Auth client is coming from down here. So we're creating a Pages server client, putting in the request and the response, some real-time information. So we're disabling the rate limit here. We can do that with a -1. So we just want to stream kind of any rate would come in. Then we're getting our session. And if we're authenticated, then we have here our, if we have a session, we can then fire off and handle our chat. And what's happening here is, so we're now using our auth client, first of all, to get a real-time channel with the user ID. So that's what we're using for the server client communication. Then we're also inserting our communication. So basically we're starting off a conversation for the AI, which gives us an interaction ID. So we can kind of use the UID here. And we're then getting the conversation log history. So that's just kind of looking at our database. So we can look at our studio. So here we now have in conversations, we have this information from our user, the question and the response. Here, so I had already one conversation earlier that's stored in here. Then we're putting together this language model chain using kind of our prompt template. This is the inquiry template here, kind of given the following user prompt and conversation log, formulate a relevant response. So user prompt is kind of the query, conversation history, and we're kind of giving it a bunch of instructions here. There we go. And then what we're doing is we're creating our broadcast channel. So we're can do channel subscribe. And basically once we're subscribed, then we can send a broadcast. And so here we're just now sending, okay, we're starting off, we're finding matches. So here we're doing our get matches from embeddings. So this is kind of LangChain, LangChain as well. So Supabase client, OpenAI embeddings, and the vector store. We're just doing our store similarity search here. So all that information you can kind of dig through the LangChain details, but this is how we're doing kind of our similarity search with LangChain to find the relevant documents for our chat. So we get our matches. From the matches, we then have our URLs, and we you saw we console logged out those URLs. And then lastly, we're just kind of getting the match metadata, getting the text and the URLs. And then we're basically building together our prompt template with the summaries. So that's, you know, kind of the summarized details from our documents, the question from the user, the conversation history, as well as the URLs. And then we're just doing our OpenAI chat here using GPT 3.5 Turbo model, and just putting that together here. And then what we're doing is once we have any updates, so basically that's kind of how the streaming works here. So we're saying streaming true, and anytime we're getting kind of a new token, we're then sending this through our broadcast channel, where we then get it on the client side. And then at the end, when the whole LLM chain is kind of finished, we're then just updating our conversation with the interaction ID in the database, so that we also have the answers from the AI in our conversation log. That's pretty much it. We can look at the index here. So in the index, we're using, you know, this is client-side rendered. So we're using the Supabase browser client here from the Supabase Auth helpers. And then pretty much we're just putting together, where do we have it? Here. Yeah, we're kind of putting auth together using Supabase Auth component here. And then we just have our channel listener. So this is our Supabase real-time channel broadcast. So when we get a chat event, we then basically just check, okay, is this a response? Is this a status message, response end, what have you? And then we just update our chatbot message. And so that's kind of how we get the streaming kind of using Supabase real-time to our client side. Yeah, that's pretty much it. This is how you can kind of get all of these different service providers bundled basically within Supabase, so that functionality is available. If you're interested in building with Supabase more with Next.js, more kind of AI applications, we have a Next.js OpenAI doc search, and this actually uses the Vercel AI SDK. So if you're interested in, kind of how does that work, you can look at this here, and we also have a video explanation for this one. So thanks so much for tuning in, and see you in the next video.